What is going on, gentlemen? Welcome to another episode here at the Masculine Health Solutions podcast. And today we will be discussing basically about how to choose the right penis pump cylinder. Due to the fact that I get this question more often than not, and though I've addressed it a couple times and I've talked about it and touched on the subject, it seems as though it's one of those that I should probably go a little bit more in depth in. Also, just so you guys all know and are aware of, I do have an article written on this specific subject on masculinehealthsolutions.com. All right, guys, without further ado, let's dive into this one. Before we get started, one more thing. If you want to get any PE gear, be sure to check out TotalManShop.com. That is TotalManShop.com. And use the promo code MHS2020. Promo code is MHS2020 and get 12% off. Be sure to check out their wide variety of all kinds of good quality PE equipment. All right? And that's promo code MHS2020 for 12% off. And the website, once again, is TotalManShop.com. Welcome to another episode here at the Masculine Health Solutions podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by, well, all the DMs I've been getting as of late, it seems, in regards to choosing the correct penis pump cylinder size, right? So a lot of guys are kind of under the impression of like, hey, I'm not 100% sure if I should get a bigger one, if I should get a smaller one, which one to go with, or which device is best for me. And I know I've touched on the subject a couple times and I've talked about my experience with it. And for me, honestly, I would always aim on the lower side. But before we get into that, let's discuss what a penis pump cylinder is, first and foremost. So the cylinder is the part of the penis pump when you buy it that you stick your dick in, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. When you take a look at it, you're like, well, that's definitely the cylinder. So most cylinders, right, will usually be between the size of, I'd say, 8 to 12 inches. There's some weird freakish ones that have like, 18 inches, 20 inches, but those are made for horses. Like it's not really the one that most guys should be looking for. All those weird novelty ones, that is not what you're looking for. The ones that you are looking for are the ones that you can use, right? Depending on where you're at. Obviously, there are the massive models, right? Like that you can get like a 14-incher. And if you're starting from 10 inches, by all means, you should get it. However, if you are starting off with 6 inches, which is the average, or 5 inches, I would highly recommend that, maybe grow into something that's a little bit smaller, right? So like an 8 inches, which is why I opened up saying that you should always aim a little bit smaller or on the smaller end than guys that, jump in and just kind of buy the biggest one out there. And next thing you know, they get their balls sucked in, and their balls getting sucked into the cylinder as they're pumping is no fun. And it's happened. I mean, you should listen to Ben Greenfield where he talks about his experience with it. And I'm not going to lie, like, I kind of laughed. However, I do know that can be quite painful, which is why I always say you want to err on the side of caution. And it's probably best to go with something that's best suited to your size, right? So take your ego out of it and just go with something that's, best for you, right? So, that's kind of the way I go about it. And as we continue here, that's what I will be preaching on more than anything. So again, you want to make sure you get the right size. So how do you determine which size is best for you? What you have to do is measure your erect length and your erect girth, right? The reason why you want to do that is that this will determine basically how much room you got left in that cylinder to grow, right? So if, like, let's say, for example, the one thing that I would recommend, I don't know, every manufacturer is different. For me, I stick to the Love pump because I think it is excellent. However, the Matters of Size pump, which I've recommended to a couple guys already that I've seen, is a terrific pump. Like that one is the hybrid pump where you can combine, you can do water pumping and air pumping. And it looks like the thing is just, honestly, it was made by a professional. You can definitely tell that, Mike Salvini put his, he put his knowledge into the design of this device. Like, honestly, to me, I'm at a point where I'm like, shoot, man, I should have got that one instead of the Bathmate. But that's just me. Anywho, going on to choosing the right size. The first thing you want to do is pull up the manufacturer's guideline, right? So for the Love one that I'm looking at right now, it'll tell you the size of the cylinder itself, right? So here it's telling me that it's got the 1.35 inch all the way up to the 3.7, right? And right here, it'll tell you the cylinder circumference inside. So the first one's 4.25. So the suggested max penis circumference size for that would be about 3.9 inches. Something around there is most appropriate. So if you're kind of on the smaller end, that would be more appropriate for you. Now, using myself as an example, the first cylinder I ever got was a 2.25, right? And at the time I was measuring about like 5.9, I think. And I was like, well, you know what? 6.25 maximum penis circumference. I'm like, that's going to be just fine for me. And granted, the max or the cylinder circumference is about 7 inches, right? So you can really you can expand into that size. And for myself, I'm like, yo, that's almost like an inch of pure growth. And honestly, like the one thing that I will say is that at that point, you're just kind of carrying on a lot of fluid, right? You're not really getting that aesthetic look that I harp on more, because I'm not looking to just have a huge bloated kind of weird looking cock. Like that's not where I'm about, or what I'm about right now. I want to make sure that it's aesthetic, it looks good, and that it's growing constantly and it stays in that expanded state. Now, what I found when I bought this 2.25 inch cylinder, that the pump itself, like, yeah, it was terrific. It was doing the job. It was great, right? However, when I made it my main goal to pack the cylinder, like you guys already know, and in doing that, I was just carrying a lot of fluid around. I get the donut and all that, but I was just so, I guess ego pumping is like a term that you could use to refer to it. And honestly, if you're just kind of ego pumping the way that I was, it's not the greatest. And I honestly don't think it is all that beneficial. So, anyways, I adjusted and I got myself the 2 inch, right? And the max cylinder circumference in this one is about 6.25, right? And it's recommended for guys with 5.5, which is a little bit lower or less than what I have, or well, what I had at the time, right? But at this point, I had already grown, so I was more closer. I was around the 6 inch mark, right? But I'm like, you know what? This one I was going to use for length, because I had done some research and they're like, hey, you know what? Use a smaller one; it'll be better. And this one ended up giving me blisters because I would pack it and then boom, all that, as you guys already know, all that pressure was right in the top of the glands, which is also not the best way to go about it. However, I then discovered later on, doing some actual research, and I found that for myself, the most appropriate cylinder size was the 2.125 inch cylinder. The circumference of it is about 6 5/8, if I'm not mistaken, which is about 17 centimeters, right? And that's the one that I use primarily more than anything, man. And honestly, this is the one that I am liking the most. It's the most comfortable. It's something that I feel that I'm actually legitimately growing into, right? And sometimes I'm not gonna lie, I will use the 2 inch post hang, right? If, like I told you guys before, I'm getting back into the hanging, right? And I'm kind of doing a combination of pumping and hanging, right? And jelqing. Those are the only things that I'm really doing, and some stretching as a warm up. And what I found for myself is just by doing the 2 inch, it just helps me to stay in that elongated state. Like I always harp on all the time, guys, you just want to fight turtling off by making sure that you're staying in that elongated state. And what I've found is that with that 2 inch, and I will honestly not even pump for, because I'm pretty much expanded completely, packed the thing from, I don't know, pretty much as soon as I jump into it, right? So I'm like, with that one, it's more about just staying. It's almost like using an extender at that point, right? And it feels terrific. And I'm not, dude. Honestly, I don't go past, like, pressure wise. It's like maybe it's under 5, guys. It's under 5, which is the importance of always getting something with a valve, so you know exactly what pressure you're using, right? So I myself, when I'm in that thing, dude, like it's packed right up to the top, and honestly, like I'll probably rock it about 2.5, man, 2 maybe. Whereas when I'm in the 2.125 inch cylinder, I still got to work my way up to packing that one, right? And it takes a little bit longer. That one, and that's the thing too, is that since I'm hanging more and I'm focusing more on length, I'm focusing on making my penis more aesthetic as well. I'm not focusing on packing it right to the top and you pull it out and it's all like bloated and it looks like a microwave pig with a blanket or something. That's, I'm just not about that. I'm not looking for that massive donut. I don't find that stuff aesthetic at all. I want my girth to obviously increase. I want to get it to hopefully 7, right? And that's what I'm working towards. Not hopefully, that's what I'm working towards. And that is, my goal. And that's something that I know will take time. And that's kind of the concept behind, succeeding in everything in life is that, you know what, it's probably just going to take some time. However, if I dedicate the appropriate amount of time to it, I know that it will happen. What I found in the past when I went for that bigger cylinder is that I was just rushing the process. And I thought that, with all that fluid buildup, that it was doing something. But I found that it's been the complete opposite now that I've been pumping, a lot in a more passive way, right? And I did more research into that and I found a dude, a Brazilian dude, and his whole approach is that he would basically pump, right? And he would just use cylinders that were a little bit smaller than, well, not a little bit smaller, but just a little bit above like the girth that he was at. And that he would pack it and that he would just leave it in there for long periods of time after it's already been packed. And his whole philosophy is that this really forces, the inside of the penis to really stretch out. When those chambers stretch out, right? That's where that growth really happens from the inside. And I found that to be quite intriguing. And I think it's the best way to go about it, which is why going back to choosing the correct cylinder, I don't think it's, the best idea for you to be like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to grab that 3-inch and grow into it. Maybe not the best case. You might want to start packing something small and start graduating into something bigger, right? Again, it all comes down to what your size is and what you want and how you're going to work towards, getting to whatever it is that you want, right? Like you're not going to shortcut this. I guess is the best way for me to go about, saying it. There is no shortcut to it. There is absolutely no way that you can just say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to pack these cylinders and I'm going to get to exactly what it is that I want in, like 0 minutes flat. It's not the case. You basically got to choose something that's, I'd say maybe I'd go with about half an inch bigger than what you are. So you could still grow into that. And you're going to grow into that rather quick. And as time goes on and you're able to pack that half inch, that gap, the faster you're able to basically close on that gap. So let's say if you're able to pack that cylinder in less than 5 minutes, man, then it's time for you to graduate. Congratulations. And at that point, it would be in your best interest to get something a little bit bigger, right? And then when you start packing that one in less than 5 minutes, you graduate from there. But as far as getting the appropriate cylinder, I would never suggest, you go, an inch. I'd say an inch is too much, man. I'd say you go half an inch. And for the guys that do it because of the whole auto erotica thing where they kind of get turned on by it, hey, you know what? That's a whole nother bag of worms. That's not why I do it. I do know that that's a thing. However, if you want to do that, hey, you know what? That's all you, I don't, from my point of view, I do not see it as a way that I'm actually going to be growing from it, nor is it a way that's really going to benefit me. Cause I just find that, hanging on to all that fluid, what I would always find is that, your penis is pretty much disfigured for half the day. And, it's just something that I think in looking to increase the size, it's also important to always focus on aesthetics, cause I mean, a brutal reality is that, hey, you can have the biggest dick, but if it's super ugly, meh, your significant other might not like it. And my wife told me that when she saw that it was all bloated and all over, it's a turn off. And I was like, well, why? It's huge. And she's like, it just looks weird. So just, I don't know what situation you're in or how it might work in your household. However, I think that when it is the most aesthetically pleasing penis and its biggest, it's big and you're making these gains, even if it's a slow progression, I kind of feel that that's the best way to go about it. Plus, the thing I wanted to add is that it's always a positive physiological indicator, in my opinion, when you can still see your vascularity. It's hard, it's rigid. It doesn't feel like just a mushy dick, right? That is not what I, ever want to promote, really, because, what's the point of that? Just big, mushy. It's not, I'm not really about that, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind, guys. That's one thing to keep in mind. And then obviously I'm focusing more on the girth side of things here, but rule of thumb, I'd say about half an inch, maybe even less than that. Grow into it as soon as or as fast as possible. And when you have grown into it, then you progress into something bigger, right? And that seems to be, I think that addresses the question that I've been getting all the time, guys. And again, keep sending me more of the questions. However, one thing I do want to address here is that when it comes to length, right? So a lot of guys have also reached out to me saying, hey, you know what, lengthwise, I may be at a, 6.5 is a common one that I see, and around that size, right? Where it's kind of like, what's the best one? Should I go for the 12? And I would say, don't go for the 12, man. I'd say, what, go for the 9. If you go for the 9, that's less of a gap. You know what? The vacuum seal is a lot faster to attain as well, which you don't have to. Obviously, if you get an electric pump, it's it's not really, it's of no effect because you don't really have to be pumping it. However, if you have a hand pump like myself, that kind of hurts your hand after a while. Where you're like, damn, man, my hand hurts. Or you got to pump, when I had like the 2.5 incher that I bought, and that was pure ego. So side note, I did get the 2.5 inch, and this was when I was still pumping like an idiot. And first I had the 2.25, then I'm like, yo, and I was able to pack it. I was able to pack it. But like I said, it was unaesthetic. It looked disfigured. It looked weird. However, my ego was saying, yeah, man, I packed this one. Now it's time to move on to the next. And I did. And I went that route. And I got the 2.5, and girth wise, I'd say, yeah, maybe I did increase a little bit of my girth. However, like I said, it wasn't aesthetic. It looked horrible. And I was able to pack the 2.5 as well. But I like I said, I did not find that it was really helping me to cement my gains. It really did not. Whereas now I've switched into this mode of or this modus operandi, I guess. This is my new MO, where it's more about vascularity, more about it being rigid. And what I find for myself, in the same way that I fight turtling off with obviously keeping an ADS or some type of extender device, making sure I'm in that elongated state for as long as possible. I'm doing the same thing in maintaining my girth simultaneously, which is not supposed to be recommended. However, I find, I was watching an interview with Mike Salvini, who was talking about, how you see a balloon expand. It doesn't expand in just one direction, right? And because of that, I've kind of mixed the two, and it's been working quite well for me. And I just combine that with the gelking. Like I said, it's a very rudimental program, man. It's about, if I have time, obviously I will hang for longer because that's still my focal point. As I said at the beginning of the year, I did fall off for a bit where I did have to take that decon break, and I had to reconstruct it, right? And I'm basically going to get, what I'm doing right now is more of a primer for the direction I want to go January 1st, because I'm like, you know what, this is going to be my solid like plan, my program. I'm going to journal all of it and make sure that I can just kind of follow it to a T. So right now I'm just kind of perfecting it, seeing what's working, seeing how it's affecting me, and seeing what things I find best over others, right? And that being said, so I really like pumping after a hang because it helps to keep the turtling away. And what I've noticed is that my girth has been very, very, very been able to keep it up as well, right? And for long periods of time. And using the smaller cylinder, right? Like the 2.125 inch, or even the 2 inch. When I just go in there, and you know what? It's like, it's not even fully packed, right? But it's fully packed, but I'm not really fully expanded. I find that just doing that, leaving it there, it's stretched out still, and it feels great after the hang. And going back to the physiological indicators, the next day I wake up and man, my morning wood is solid, right? The vascularity is there, intercourse feels great, and it looks aesthetic, right? So that's kind of why I lean more in that direction. So again, as I was saying, if you do want to focus more on length, because there are guys that do want to focus more on length pumping, then yeah, you also want to make sure you go in a narrow tube, maybe even more narrow than what you are. However, you are going to be flirting with danger here. And why I say that again, because if your glands aren't protected and you decide to go down this road, you could really, 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 really hurt yourself, right? So I'm not gonna advocate for that too much. However, I've seen guys on forums who do talk about how that's extremely beneficial to them, and that's how they made length gains. And I do see how that concept could work, because basically, view it like this: like, for myself, in order to be fully stretched out, like I remember when I reached 9.25 inches in the tube, I was in the 2 inch tube, and I was using heat. I was very well lubricated. However, I was not protecting the glands, which you guys already know led to the blister. Um, when I was in that state, I was able to really max out on length. Like that's the most length I've ever gone. And to be completely honest with you guys, like now when I'm pumping in the 2.125 inch, or even if I'll go up to the 2.25, again, I'm not looking for to fully pack it. I'm just kind of looking for a little bit of expansion. And honestly, I won't really go past like 20-40 minutes really. Um, but what I'm finding for myself, even though, I do see the expansion go up about 70% of my shaft, which is great. However, like I said, I'll jelk and I'm not looking to get that mushy cock anymore. Like I'm really not. I do got all the cylinders lined up for when I do grow. However, the focus, like I said, is to be aesthetic, right? So, anyways, going back to what I was saying about being in the smaller cylinder. Oh yeah, going back to that. So, I mean, I may not reach my full stretched out like bone press flaccid stretch length. However, I will still be pretty much at 80-90%, right? So, when I'm up that high, I still consider it a win because hey, you know what? You're stretched. I'm pretty well stretched out at that point, like the expansion or the extended state is real in that situation, right? And I'm at a really, really good place, right? And I think it's super beneficial. So I just kind of leave it there and I just kind of chill. I take it easy. I'm not looking to push extremes, really. Like I said before, guys, I'm all about progressive overload, right? The slower you do things, the harder it is for you to lose things, right? There's a lot of guys that think, I gotta go hard, and I'm just gonna push it to the extreme. Then what happens is they fall off, and all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh man, this stuff isn't working, yada yada yada. Where I'm like, nah, man, you gotta have the approach of this is a marathon. And when I tell you that this is a marathon, I am not joking. This is a very time-consuming hobby, to say the least, or lifestyle, right? Like you're not going to make gains in one day. You're not going to make gains in 1 month. You may not even make, well, in a year, yeah, you probably will. But what I'm getting at is that it takes time. It's not something that's just going to come to you overnight and that you're just going to expect to just, oh, look at that. I smashed a PR, or I smashed a personal best when it came to bone press flaccid stretch length, or bone press erect length, or whatever the case may be, or erect girth. This stuff, it will take time. And all you got to make sure that you focus on more than anything is that you give yourself the appropriate amount of time and you have the appropriate mindset. And guys, just keep in mind that every little bit that you do on the daily will help you to make gains, right? So the most important thing that I want to leave you guys with is that you got to dedicate time to this as much as possible, like 5 days a week. And even on your days off, you want to make sure you're using your ADS. Like the one, I don't know what, I kind of have to revisit my personal philosophy when it comes to PE, but I almost feel like the best thing you can possibly do is just do this on the daily. Like I used to be more about rest days, and I think rest days are important to a degree. However, even on your rest days, I still think, what, doing some type of light PE activity is going to benefit you big time, right? And and I honestly find that if you're able to do something, if you're able to do something, daily, that's going to be huge in propelling you forward. And if you do feel like you need that rest day, if you're still able to do it, whatever your workout program is, and you're able to do a lighter version of that, and you're able to stay in that big state, guys, like that, I think that's been the key. That has been the key for myself, when I really started to make gains and changing, my mindset more than anything. And I do know that this is time consuming, guys. Like I told you in the summer where I had to take time off because I'm like, man, dude, I just do not have the time for this. And it can be something difficult to do because we all have priorities, right? Like Lord only knows, I wish I could be working from home. However, I cannot. So it is what it is. But it is something that will take time and it will be gradual. But on the bright side, and if you're mentally prepared to go the distance, you will win at this, right? There's no other way around it. You just got to seek that everyday excellence, like Joe Templin was talking about. And you just got to make sure that every single day you are dedicating a little bit of time to this, just a little bit of time, And the best way to go about it, like I did in that episode about lazy ways to make your penis bigger, is find a passive approach, right? Whether it's the ADS, whether the extender. If you're just chilling at home and you can pump, and pump at a very, very low low pressure. Why not, man? Why not? Right. So again, when it comes to choosing the correct penis pump cylinder, to give you a quick synopsis, I would focus more on the smaller side of things, but the appropriate side of things. As far as length goes, I wouldn't go with something that's 3, 4 inches longer than what you are. I'd probably go with something that's like 3 inches. Right. For myself, I got the foot long tube, and highest I've ever gone, like I said, was that 9.25 inch mark. And I really haven't pumped to go full length extension ever again. I might in the near future. I am looking, I'm saving up to get some more PE gear in the new year. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. And yeah, so I'd always recommend go for I mean, err on the side of caution and focus more on the aesthetic side of things. Don't go for the extremes. However, sometimes when you go for the extremes, you will get the extreme results, which I know is also true. However, you do want to make sure that you work your way up and have a solid foundation before you go into this quote unquote extreme world. You don't want to just start hitting it like, yeah, man, I'm gonna go bench 500 pounds and I ain't never even benched 2 plates, and then you're just gonna walk in there and just skip. You got to go through the process, right? So again, guys, just do it safely, do it gradually. Progressive overload is your friend. And just keep in mind that this is one long marathon, right? But if you do it correctly and you have the proper approach and mentally you're sound and you know that this is just a day in, day out kind of thing, in the same way you floss your teeth, in the same way you brush your teeth, right? You will make gains in the future. So that being said, guys, I hope that clears up any questions you have. As far as which brands to go with, you could check out the article on the website. It's all about choosing the correct pump cylinders, as long as making a little bit of a, what's the word I'm looking for? A comparison, right? So you guys can see what the prices are like. To give you a quick rundown here, basically the ones that I mentioned are the ones that I just think are great. La Love, you guys know I'm a big fan of them. The Matters of Size Mighty Vac Pump, like I said, the hybrid version of that one is incredible. Like I said, the guys I've been working with, along with some clients of mine, have also said that, what, this thing is just incredible. So I'm really thinking about maybe switching up mine in the future when it is time. The other one that I think is really, really well crafted as well, a very, very well crafted pump, is the LA pump. They got a whole bunch of, you want to talk about variations when it comes to cylinders, these guys have it. And I also found their website was very user friendly, along with it accommodates to all the different needs that guys may have in regards to choosing the right size. They also have a wide flange base, which is very, very comfortable, something I wish I had known more about when I had gotten mine. However, it is what it is. And they also have the mushroom head maker. So if you are looking to expand the size of your glands, just be careful with that, obviously, with the pressure. I'm pretty sure the manufacturer probably, they probably discuss, safety as well. And yeah, those are the ones that, like I said, I'm a big fan of. The Bathmate, obviously, I know a lot of guys use that as well. I find that one's more, I just find that the diameter on that one is just massive for myself. So I prefer the snug fit. It's better to get that pressure build up faster, in my opinion. Right. So I'm a bigger fan of the air cylinder design, right? And the one that will give you, a better selection when it comes to cylinders. I honestly think that's just the Matters of Size one. Pentamet claims that they can do it as well, but all they have are like the different chumpers, I think they're called, basically the thing they use to pump, but they don't really give you the exact cylinder size that you may be looking for, right? Which I find is a lot more precise with the air pump models, which is why, I'd recommend, if you are on the market and you are looking for that, I'd probably go with the air pump model, and make sure you go with one with a gauge. Like I said, guys, you want to be able to track exactly what amount of pressure you're using. So with that being said, I wish you men a very, very good day. And that's it for this episode of the Masculine Health Solutions podcast.